Welcome to the Master Your Body podcast. This is a podcast for anyone who is interested in improving the way their body looks, feels, and moves. Working on your body can be incredibly difficult, but also very confusing and overwhelming. In this podcast, we'll separate the good stuff from the time wasters, giving you only the most valuable, useful, and actionable content to help you make progress and master your body. So whether it's building muscle and strength, losing body fat, feeling fitter, healthier, or improving your mental health, we'll cover it all here on the Master Your Body podcast. If you want more great content to help you build your body and mind, you can follow me personally on Instagram at AndyClements01 or on YouTube, I'm Andy Clements. My name is Andy Clements and welcome to the Master Your Body podcast. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Master Your Body podcast. My name is Andy Clements, and I believe we are up to episode number 68 today, which is cool. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about how to spend a limited amount of time in the gym, and I'm going to assume, just for argument's sake, that you have 4 hours per week to spend in the gym, which is obviously not a bad amount of time, but it's a limited amount of time, and you need to be aware of how to get the most out of that time. Now, this is almost a little bit of a follow-up to the last episode 67, which was a very in-depth episode about where to start with fat loss. It was probably the longest one I've done on this podcast. I think it's about 45 minutes long. So if you have listened to that, then great, you'll be prepared for this one. If not, then I'll kind of summarize. It's basically just the basics of everything you need to know in order to start a fat loss program and be successful with it. And we're going to go in a little bit more detail on the training aspect of it today. Again, this is probably still applicable to a muscle building goal, but I think that probably the people who are going to benefit from this most, the people who are trying to lose body fat or trying to recomp the body a little bit, build muscle and lose fat at the same time, and have a limited amount of time spent in the gym. So I don't have any notes for this today. I don't have any preparation. So if this goes off at the deep end and stops making sense, then you know why. But hopefully it will. Hopefully it'll make a lot of sense and it will be helpful for you if you have a limited amount of time spent in the gym and want to know the wisest way to spend it. Now, before I get started on this, I do have more detail on the things I'm going to talk about on my YouTube channel, which can be found at Andy Clements. I'm not sure. I don't think it has a proper address. I think it's just YouTube search Andy Clements and it should come up, and you should sort of find my channel that way. So you can go and look at some of the most popular videos on there, which is sort of training program related, and get some information there. But basically what I want to talk about, like I say, is let's say you've got 4 hours per week to spend in the gym. How should you spend that to get the most bang for your buck? How should you spend that to get the biggest return on investment when it comes to building a better body, whether that's through fat loss or muscle building or probably preferentially both? So in my opinion, the biggest consideration that you have to, I kind of alluded to it there a minute ago, but the biggest consideration when it comes to a limited amount of time per week to spend in the gym is the return on investment you're going to get per exercise or per hour or whatever, per session, right? You want to get a big return on investment for each exercise that you do. So if you've got a limited amount of time to spend in the gym, a limited amount of energy and resources to spend in the gym per week, then it doesn't make sense to spend all your time doing really isolation-based, small, fancy exercises that might be, sexy to farm in the likes on Instagram, but don't actually bring you that much return on investment, right? Because you'll have to add a lot of those little fluffy exercises in order to achieve a decent return on investment, which is going to take a long time. It's going to take a couple of hours per session, to add all these exercises in to get the same return on investment for your time and for your energy input than a big heavy duty compound exercise would. So that's the first consideration, is you want to make sure that you're using big compound movements. Now, I would hope it would go without saying, people that have listened to this podcast before, that all of the things that I'm going to explain here are weight training related. I'm not going to tell you to get on a fucking cross trainer or a treadmill. So whether your goal is muscle building or fat loss, the advice is the same in terms of training. Work your muscles. So it's all weight training focused. So in that regard, make sure that you are doing big compound movements with weights, right? Now, let's zoom out a little bit and sort of say what kind of approach should you follow in terms of a program, right? There's two that I recommend. The first one is what I recommend generally to complete beginners. And this tends to be a full body workout. And I spoke about this on YouTube and in podcasts before and stuff like that, so you may or may not have heard me speak about this. But if it's your first time listening, then obviously you probably won't have heard me speak about this. But if you're a complete beginner or you're relatively inexperienced in the gym, then my preference for those kinds of people is always to do a full body approach. Always to do a full body approach. Because you just don't have, especially if you're a beginner, you just don't have that tolerance built up to weight training yet in order to tolerate big heavy duty sessions. Therefore, you're going to end up being sore after your workouts. That's just, a sort of common knowledge. If you go in and you do a big heavy leg day, or you do an arm day, or you do a shoulder day, or a chest day, or whatever, then you can expect, if you've never trained before, or you've got very little experience training, that you will be very poor at recovering from those workouts. You'll be struggling probably if you do a leg day for the first time ever. You probably, if it's heavy and it's hard and you train hard, then you're probably going to be struggling for like 10 days plus to walk properly until the soreness really, really wears off, Now, not only is that not desirable because nobody wants to fucking have their legs hurting for 10 days, it just interrupts with your life and it just disrupts your quality of life, But also, if you're interested in actually developing that muscle, which you should be if your goal is muscle building, but you also should be if your goal is fat loss, because developed muscle aids in boosting your metabolism and aids in fat loss indirectly as well. And if you're interested in developing that muscle, you need to be interested in getting in and training that muscle as often as possible, which is probably multiple times per week in an ideal world. Now, if you're so sore that you can barely sit on the toilet and you can barely walk upstairs properly, you ain't going to be doing any squats anytime soon, because it just ain't going to happen. You're going to be doing a little bit of light stretching and maybe some hot baths and red light therapy or whatever you can do to get your hands on recovery, but you ain't gonna be getting back in the gym and doing squats anytime soon. So I would avoid doing really specified workouts if you're a beginner, whether your goal is fat loss or muscle building. Now, what to do instead? So the full body workout approach tends to be more of a sort of a little and often approach. So instead of going into the gym on Monday and doing a heavy leg session, not being able to walk until the following Monday, and then doing another one, what you're going to do instead is you're going to come in on Monday and you're going to do a little bit of a attention on the legs. So it might be like a 1 or 2 exercise on the legs, so an exercise for quads like a squat, exercises for hamstrings like, I don't know, a leg curl or some sort of a hip hinge movement or something like that, which again, the squats and the hip hinge movements are compound lifts, so they're big, heavy, multi-joint, multi-muscle movements that you're getting big return on investment for. But they will be the only leg movements you do over the entire session. The other movements might be stuff like, bent over rows or some sort of rowing movement for your back, pull down movements for your lats, pressing movements for your shoulders, for your chest, all sorts of different stuff like that that's going to give attention to your whole body. So that's the first consideration. The second consideration is big compound lifts, and probably for beginners, a full body approach. Now, for complete beginners who've never been in the gym before, I recommend an approach called German body composition training, which quite simply is just upper and lower body supersets. So if you don't know what a superset is, that basically just means 2 exercises back to back, where you'll do one exercise, do that for 10 reps or 12 reps or whatever, and then you'll go straight into another exercise and do 10 or 12 reps of that, and then you'll rest. Okay, and that'd be what we call a superset. Now, the German body composition style basically dictates that you do an upper body exercise, for example, a bent over row or a shoulder press, and then you go straight into a lower body exercise without any rest, for example, a squat or a leg press or a leg curl or something like that, right? And what that does is it allows you to create some sort of intensity through the speed of your workout without needing the heavy loading that you'll need further on when you're more experienced. Because the thing when you're starting out in the gym is you need to dedicate a certain amount of time to actually learning how to train, right? So, you're actually learning how to train safely, learning how to train with accuracy, so you can actually feel what you're doing before you start complicating the equation by throwing loads of weight at at your body, right? Which is not what you're going to want to do from the get-go. You're going to want to spend some time and actually learn the skill of training, which is a continuous development over the entire time you're in the gym, from day one to 15, 20 years from now, if you choose to carry it on that long. It's always a thing we should be working on developing, and it's always a thing we should be working on getting better at. But in the first few weeks, first few months, it's definitely a new thing, and we need to lay down the neurological hardware to be able to connect the brain to the body and move in very specific ways. And you don't want loading complicating that equation. So, but the gym body composition basically allows us to get a good workout in through the volume and through the the sort of amount of work you're doing without rest. So you're getting a lot of blood in that area, and you're getting your heart rate up, and you're getting your lungs working and things like that, without having to rely on the loading to create the intensity as well. So you're getting good workouts in without the risk of injury is the point. So that's what I recommend for complete beginners. Once you've moved out of that, you can start to move on to a more sort of a slower paced approach and use loading as the way to generate intensity. So you can start lifting heavier weights, but that comes sort of after. The other approach, the other workout style, for want of a better word there, is generally what I would reserve for slightly more advanced people who have a little bit more experience in the gym and know the basic movements of how to train. So if that's you, then this is probably more suited to you. And again, a full body workout would still be okay for you. You could still utilize that and have a sort of a slower paced, heavier, compound lift centric full body workout 4 times a week if you chose that. But if you want to be a little bit more specific, I would recommend doing something like an upper body, lower body split, where you basically go through and train your upper body on one day, and then the next day you come in, you train your lower body, and then the next time you come in, you train your upper body, and the next time your lower body, and so on and so forth, and you just alternate upper, lower. So if you've got 4 hours to train per week, so 4 workouts of an hour long each, then that's perfect to just do 2 upper body workouts and 2 lower body workouts. And you'll again stick to primarily compound lifts in that, and you can sprinkle a little bit of isolation work here and there at the ends of the workouts if you want, and that's sometimes what I call like fluffy exercises and stuff, and I make fun of them a little bit, but they're still necessary in small amounts. But they are, given the choice between an isolation movement like a leg extension versus a compound movement like a squat, whether it's a machine squat or a barbell squat or a dumbbell squat, whatever it is, there's no competition, because the return you're going to get on the time investment you're putting in from a squat is magnitudes higher than the return on the investment from the leg extension. That doesn't mean a leg extension is unnecessary or it's not helpful. It just means that if you only have time to do one, the answer is obvious. You do the squat, right? Or the leg press, or the compound movement over the isolation movement. And again, I don't want to be misinterpreted there. Like, the isolation movements have their place. I use them myself. I use them with clients, but I'm just highlighting the importance of the return on investment you're going to get from the bigger movements. So, yeah, that's generally my thoughts on how you should spend a limited amount of time in the gym. Compound movements, either a full body approach or an upper lower approach. Don't mess about too much with the fluffy exercises, with the bicep curls, with the side raises, with the leg extensions. They have their place, but if you only have a limited amount of time, I wouldn't overload your workouts with those things. I would also make sure that the bulk of what you're doing is weight training, even if fat loss is your goal, because that the the weight training is going to improve muscle mass. The muscle mass is going to improve your overall metabolic rate. Your overall metabolic rate is how many calories you burn at rest. And if we can burn more calories at rest, then we have a much easier chance or a much greater chance of losing body fat at an easier rate or faster rate. So, that's basically some brief thoughts. I don't want to keep this podcast too long because the last one was very long, and the next one on where to start with muscle building will probably be quite long as well. But I just wanted to give you a little sort of a tag-on episode to the last one to give you a bit of an idea of how to train when it comes to either losing fat or gaining muscle when you're on a time schedule. Now, I have, like I said before, some more in-depth videos on my YouTube channel which will teach you a little bit more about how to run an upper lower split or how to run a full body workout split. I'm going to be uploading some more advanced ones about push pull leg splits and different things like that as well, that you can go on and have a little watch and see what you think there and get an idea for the different kinds of programs and see which one's right for you. But hopefully, as a bit of an overview, this gave you some ideas and gave you some sort of context on how to spend a limited time in the gym. So hope you enjoyed that, and I will speak to you next time on the Master Your Body podcast. Cheers. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Master Your Body podcast. Just before you take off, if you enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you could take a screenshot of it on your phone and add it to your Instagram story to spread the word. If you tag me in it at AndyClements01, I'll repost it as well. Don't forget to subscribe for new episodes of the Master Your Body podcast every week, and I'll catch you next time for another episode.